Hello and welcome to Creating a Thriving Economy in Romania through Employable Graduates and Lifelong Learners, a roundtable discussion held in partnership between Times Higher Education and Coursera for Campus. My name is Ashton Wemborne. I am the Special Projects Deputy Editor at THE, and I'll be chairing our discussion today. So if you could all keep your cameras on for the duration of our discussion, that would be really useful. And if you can introduce yourselves and your institutions the first time you speak, that also helps a great deal. If you'd like to get my attention or jump in on the discussion at any point, please feel free to just join in, or you can use the raise hand function, which is at the bottom of your screen in the reaction section as well. Romania is noted as an emerging tech ecosystem in Europe. However, its population has seen a significant decline in recent years. Digital skills education could be key to ensuring that graduates stay in Romania to live and work. The higher education sector has a major role to play in enabling this. So I'd like to begin today's discussion by asking, what key skills are valued by graduate employers in Romania and where those major skills gaps can be seen? Perhaps we can start today with Alexandru, if you would like to speak a little bit on those topics. Sorry, you're just on mute at the moment.
With myself, it didn't work in first place. Thank you very much, first of all, for hosting me here today. My name is Alexandru Petrescu. I am an associate professor and director of the Doctoral School of Urban Planning at Ion Mincu University of Architecture and Urban Planning, the only university in Romania teaching only architecture and all urban planning. Now, I'm actually representing our rector, Professor Marian Moiceanu, who was invited and couldn't attend, so he asked me to attend the meeting, especially because I am also the data officer in charge with the presence of our university in international rankings, including Times Higher Education. So this is about me now. About the question you had asked, this is a little bit hard to say because also Romania had been going through a reform of its education system. And I may say that I was lucky to be part of a study that started with a different profession. And for that very profession, they were doing the following exercise. They were asking the graduates, what skills and knowledge do they use in their activity? Now, please note that it was a field where there were several universities delivering education. So the answers of the graduates showed that it was barely impossible to get your education for that profession from only one university. During their professional experience, they had to go and take more courses to acquire all the skills and knowledge necessary just for a basic performance of their profession. So this is one of the problems that our education system might have in general, in terms of switching to an education that is actually directed to the needs of the graduates and to the needs of a professional in a specific field. Now, obviously, for architecture and urban planning, there are many skills because this is not one of the fields where let's say you can take some courses eventually online and then get everything you need from books or other things. There are many practical skills that you have to get only in school. And in particular, for architects and urban planners, they have to learn how to learn, first of all. And even the very first entry in the university is essential for getting the skill and understanding what is needed for them to acquire this skill. So this is quite challenging for us and has been acutely challenged by the pandemics we are going through, because obviously it is very hard to teach them in a fashion that allows each person to receive the information or given the particularities of that person when you do it online. But I don't want to monopolize the time, so I think that this is a first answer and we'll follow through if necessary.
Thank you very much. It's really interesting to hear. And sorry, was there some background there? sorry. At an institution like yours, where it's you're delivering really specific education around architecture and urbanism, that you're also considering those kind of broader skills that all students, you know, perhaps everywhere around the world need, regardless of the field that they're entering into. And you mentioned that students need to learn how to learn. And I think Coursera runs a course that has almost exactly that title. So I'm interested to hear, Evgenia, is that something that you at Coursera considering, how to deliver that kind of really broad education to students, whether they're studying architecture or, you know, medicine or whatever it may be?
Yes, definitely. And thank you, Ashton. And thank you, Alexandro, a lot. It was extremely interesting to hear what kind of challenges you are facing and what kind of observations you are currently having. I'm Evgenia. I'm the Director of University Partnerships with Coursera. So currently, you know, Coursera is working a lot with universities, supporting them in their new experiences of blended learning. And we are working with the university curricula for different types of universities, and it's very much linked to your question, Ashton, because what we're observing currently, I would say these are two trends. One is highly linked to the development of new technology. And then you would assume that the demand for skills in technology is increasing, obviously. So no matter if students are studying architecture or they're studying medicine, technology is something that is relevant to all these to all the students, right? But this is something that everyone is aware of. Everyone is talking about technological revolution. Everyone is talking about data. But the other trend, which I find even more interesting, is linked to the development of soft skills. So on one hand, we have technology. On the other hand, at Coursera we can see the value of human skills is increasing a lot. The value of critical thinking skills is increasing a lot, because the logical question would be, what would be these jobs that machines are not able to replace, and what we can leverage as humans to stay in this sense competitive. And the trend that we're observing globally in learning environment is this combination of technology skills, soft skills, critical thinking skills, a lot of multidisciplinary and even interdisciplinary kind of learning. And here I don't think Romania is very much different, because Romania has so many international players, and nowadays the borders are actually opening. I mean, in terms of the employers, what we observe, that since working remotely becomes a new normal, it means that more and more international companies are entering Romanian market, the market of talent. That's why I am curious to hear our colleagues today, to hear what's specific to Romanian market, but I see that global trends, they become more and more linked to local trends as well, if it makes sense. Thank you for the question, Ashton.
Thank you. Irina, I think that your role involves quite a lot of thinking about that international focus, international relationships for your students and faculty. And so how would you respond to that question of the role of kind of local and global focus when teaching skills to students in Romania?
Well, thank you first for having me and my university here in the discussion. I act as Vice Rector for International Relations, indeed, and I'm also representing an alliance of universities that is going to, let's say, develop in deeper sense the cooperation and also take the skill gaps to the next level of understanding and finding solutions. To answer your question, I would start to say that I'm representing indeed technological university, technical university in the northeast part of Romania, which is now the hotspot, I would say, in IT development. In terms of digital skills, we cover engineering at all levels, undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate. And even in postdoctoral studies, we incorporate in our university a slice, I would say, of the architecture studies in Romania. Of course, Alexandru Petrescu is representing the best of the best in terms of architecture, but we have also our share. I would comment that the digital skills started to develop as within the curricula regarding at least the end user. So that means basically that the university has a portfolio of softwares that are involved in teaching and research, and basically we train our students to use them. The point is that we would need more help in this regard because the technology advances very fast, and the companies would like to have it closer to us and to have them as partners, offering software even remotely, because some of them are within the labs, but nowadays it's essentially to be able for students to use them remotely, because only part of the classes are, let's say, face-to-face. In this online world, we provide guidance, but the access is essential. I would say that also we have a lot of initiatives. We are core partners in several projects related to digital innovation hubs, northeast of Romania, and also a center of providing digital competence that is open for people from the university, but also from people from the northeast region, which means basically that we cover with these two initiatives the demand on increasing the digital skills of the students, but also for professors to a larger extent other than the IT related engineering. Although all the engineering is IT related nowadays, but some are more than others. And also to offer, let's say, the long life learning path for people that needs not necessarily to reskill, but actually to upskill in several of the engineering fields. And also we have department, very strong and active one related to entrepreneurship related to engineering and management. But this probably will come later in our discussion. For now, we would like not only to have the opinion of graduates that are not necessarily all the time open to answer questionnaires, but also from partners from industry. It's essentially to have their feedback, and especially their present feedback, because every year counts, and these days it's very important to have their opinion on 2020, 2021, not much prior to these years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you've touched there on all of the key issues that I hope that we'll have time to discuss today. So I think I'd like first to speak a little bit more about, you mentioned that you're offering that kind of digital skills training, not just your undergraduates, but to staff as well. And I think that an issue that seems to be coming up quite a lot at the moment is that you can embed in curricular skills training, and you can say that that's what you're going to equip students with. But if the staff aren't also equipped with the necessary training to give that instruction, then the whole thing sort of starts to fall apart. So Romana, I'd love to hear, that seems perhaps like something that's resonating with you. How do you support staff so that they can then support students?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Romana Kramarenko. I'm representing Babeș-Bolyai University in Cluj-Napoca, pretty much the largest university in Romania. A very complex one if we take into account all the disciplines that we are trying to cover and all the departments. So we are a huge employer in the area. So in this respect, the pandemic triggered plenty of issues that some of them were covered prior to the pandemic, and the others were addressed as fast as possible in a very responsible manner. Because from the very beginning, we consider that the whole pandemic it should be perceived as an opportunity. But we started very in-depth need analysis at the level of the staff. And a big surprise was related to the level of readiness, not for the staff, but for the students. So for the teachers, for example, we provided plenty of training programs, not just for the use of the platforms, but more focus on how each and every teacher should adapt the content, the curricula, to the very specific word of e-learning, which is such a complex word, in a sense that after the pandemic, if there is such a time, in post-pandemic time, we are going to develop even more the blended learning system. For Babeș-Bolyai University students, we do have low level of digital skills for undergraduates, and that was the huge surprise. They were so skillful. We consider them so advanced in digital skills, but most of their skills are related to social media and not to educational activities. So once we acknowledge that the teachers are better equipped, we went further for the students. As far as the administrative staff is concerned, we develop plenty of trainings for them, and the upskilling for IT specialists that are working as supporting staff in the university. So plenty of things are developed within the university. We signed some relevant partnership for developing MOOCs, for example. We do have a strong department for e-learning, and that's why probably the immediate switch to online activities was, let's say, smooth. And we also developed very specific trainings for students and staff in order to increase their autonomy, because remote studying and remote work was not something very spread, let's say, within our university. We do love campus-based learning, and we pretty much lost it. Most of the university is now offering all the disciplines pretty much online, exclusively online. We were not so present on site, except for Faculty of Chemistry or Physics or Biology. They desperately need some presence in the laboratories. So I do hope that all the partnerships with, let's say, with EON or blockchain that we are signing and trying to foster and develop are going to help us, because the signs are really nice. For the master students, for example, they are so well equipped. They are already working, most of them for companies, as you mentioned before, for companies that are considered foreign investors in Romania. So they are well equipped with digital skills, and for them, online learning was the best solution. They are directly asking for this form of teaching and learning in the future. But for undergraduates, they are totally missing campus sites and socializing and everything related to campus-based learning. So a mix of it is going to be developed from our university. So we try to take a very good care of the staff, that they are exhausted but still happy to support students. But we figure out quite quickly that they need support as well as the students.
Thank you. It's interesting to hear that you've had varying degrees of success with that fully online model. And so I wonder, I suppose for undergraduates in particular, are there aspects of digital tools that can help you assess how effective that skills training is? So I'm thinking about kind of data analytics and the way that data can offer insights into how students are engaging with their learning and how effective that is, how their attainment is relating to their behaviour. Alexandru, I might come to you there. I know that your work in data is slightly different, but can you offer us any insights about how data can help institutions to train effectively?
Well, data are certainly important, but if we take our university, obviously planning relies more on data and on up-to-date data. But obviously architecture relies on some consecrated knowledge, on some new pieces of software, and also probably very much on the creativity which we must basically stimulate. So of course, I can talk more about urban planning, not only because it is my field, but also because of the different positioning of this field in different universities. Romania includes it together with architecture among the artistry domains, but actually humanities might not be the best description. It is closer to social sciences, and obviously when you talk about social sciences, the need for data comes more acute than in the other fields. So this is why actually we do have this separation between them. Yes, we do rely on data, and Romania usually lacks data, or maybe doesn't lack data, but lacks a good knowledge of the potential sources of data, because data exists with different organizations, with different institutions, sometimes online. It just takes the know-how to be able to find the data and use them.
Thank you. And Evgenia, Coursera's got, I think it's 92 million learners or something at this point. And so that's a huge repository of data. And can you offer any insights there on how your own learners are engaging with those digital tools?
Definitely. And actually, it was extremely interesting to listen to Romana, what she was mentioning in terms of trying to deliver with digital skills to different groups of learners and having different level of success. This makes me think actually, and it's a very philosophical question that I always have on my mind, what are the actual objectives of higher education? So should it be part of your objective or should it not be? And I think this is the time when it's decided, because nowadays, my personal experience and my personal way of thinking, and I have a bachelor degree in management and then master's degree in economic theory, econometrics and statistics, and an MBA degree. So I studied quite a lot in my life. But my feeling is that higher education is the basis, the fundamental part of building your mindset and for creating this basis that would allow you to continue learning in the future, that would structure your critical thinking. And that's why I'm a bit hesitating to say that yes, it's the objective of higher education to deliver these digital skills. At the same time, what we're observing in Coursera, we see a high demand for these short courses, very short, 1 to 3 hours, that would teach learners very practical skills. And I call them how-to kind of courses. And when I joined Coursera in January this year, I think they had around 300 courses of this type. And now we have 2,500 courses, and we call them guided projects. Why they're guided projects? Because these are instructor-led courses. So you would have a screen divided into 2 parts. It's like a virtual desktop. And then let's say something that might be relevant to everyone, like how to use Excel. And the instructor would say, like press here, do this, would give instruction, and the learner would repeat the actions. And it's like pre-configured environment. So the demand coming from both our corporate clients and universities is high for these things. And I think that the demand is high for several reasons. Obviously, employers are requiring these very practical, very basic skills that are not related to social media, right? And universities need to somehow solve this problem, deliver this knowledge. But at the same time, you have your faculty members who have PhD degrees in fantastic topics. So you would not want them to spend time teaching your students basic digital knowledge. And that's why this kind of content is so much popular on Coursera platform. And answering your question regarding data, I think it's also linked to what Irina was mentioning, is how to make sure that the skills that are offered to students are relevant these points of the time, that they were not relevant a year ago because the market is changing so much. And again, I think it will be a question to you if you will be willing to answer it, if you think that it's actually among objectives of higher education to identify these skills, because the way we see how universities are currently outsourcing this task to MOOCs platforms, because companies like Coursera, they would work with companies directly, because companies are hiring Coursera to upskill and reskill their employees on a daily basis. So Coursera accumulates all this data from the market and is able to actually share this data with universities. So this is the current situation. And I'm extremely curious to hear your thoughts, what exists within objectives of the university, and what do you consider should be offloaded elsewhere?
Irina, did you want to respond to that question there about, I suppose, really whose role is it to figure out what skills need to be given to students and to then give those to them?
Well, yes, it's an important question. It's also a tricky question for many reasons. First, I would like to say that in my university, I think that it's more and more obvious that a lot of engineering is related to data analytics and using.
Sorry, it looks like we might have lost Irina there. Yeah, that's okay. We can return to that. Romana, would you like to maybe jump in on the same question there?
Yeah, well, I would try to. So I totally agree that sometimes higher education institutions are trying to find the right balance between delivering very exquisite content in terms of knowledge. So the knowledge transfer cannot be replaced by any kind of, I don't know, short, quick support. But probably in the last 2 years, we became so aware of how much, how valuable is the so-called student-centered learning system. So their needs are on the radar. They are demanding so many things from their perspective. We also have the pressure of the employers. So the best solution was to extend partnership with the business environment in order to define internship programs to ease the students' transition from the university to the labor market, to the specific of to the specificities of one job. And nevertheless, I do consider that we try to do a lot for the students from that mission of the university, being so involved in the community, because we perceive our students as member of the academic community as well as the local or regional community. So if they are satisfied with the educational services, once they become alumni of the university, they are returning because they want to learn more from the university. They want to bring their training offers, for example. So probably the partnership with the business environment in terms of internship and projects will help both the university not to lose their focus on teaching and learning, but to adapt the teaching and learning process to the present generation and to the labor market needs. Everybody is putting a pressure, but in the same time, the universities are so willing to remain a stakeholder and not just a source of some well-equipped graduates ready for the market. I do believe that in 3 years, if we take Bologna process in 3 years, you can equip your students with some soft skills, some digital skills, but in the same time, without genuine and tailor-made internships, they are not going to be, I don't know, highly performing employers ready for jumping into one company and taking over one department and being independent and so on and so forth.
Thank you. I came across a survey before our roundtable today that I think really echoes a lot of the points that you brought up, Romana. It was by Statista, and it said that 45% of Romanian companies consider upskilling and reskilling to be the best way to close the skills gap. And then another 27% said it was establishing a strong pipeline from education into industry. And those seem to be really the two key ways that industry in Romania envisions closing that skills gap. And really, I think another key aspect of our discussion today is that you can provide excellent skills training to learners, but if they take that skills training and leave the country, then that talent drain problem remains. You're just having a more talented drain. So I'd like to really drill down into the idea of how do you keep students in Romania so that they can continue learning and really bring that talent to industry. Irina, I think we lost you for a second earlier when you were answering a previous question, but if you'd like to jump in on that, it would be great to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you. What we have seen is the big data available now is quite a trigger of not only curiosity, but a lot of opportunity in terms of programs outside research. I wouldn't say necessarily unconnected, but if we refer to teaching, we have several programs running with industrial partners in the field of big data, and they are very keen to offer their expertise in the field, and at the same time the students tend to take employers more seriously once they are their teacher. It's like having a stronger opinion, let's say, on the reality. In terms of what we do for the future graduates to keep them, indeed internships are very important, but sometimes they feel that they train during the internships to leave later on. So what we try to do is to find and especially to train and provide the mindset, not necessarily the knowledge, for starting their own business, let's say, for entrepreneurship. And we have several projects. We start one with Innotech students, for instance, and that means financing students for around 25 students to start their own business. But besides that, besides the information of how you can start the business, what is the business plan and so on, we train them for the mindset, and that is provided yearly by summer schools where we have guests, even if in this, let's say, difficult times, we have online summer schools on social entrepreneurship and sustainable entrepreneurship. And probably because it was online, it was possible to have a lot of guests. We have moderators from our university, but also we have a lot of guests from all over the world. And that means also to actually develop the human skills provided by Romanian American Foundation for our teachers in terms of entrepreneurship, with training for 1 semester there. And once they return, they start to spread, let's say, the time, the energy, the enthusiasm, and also the knowledge and the training constantly, because you cannot solve in one course a specific need. I would say that it takes time and dedication and mentoring, because outside of training, you need the mentoring afterwards. And the industrial partners are willing to provide this mentoring slowly, indeed. It's not so much a rush to do that, but it's obvious that without their help, the regime can suffer, let's say, from people that feel that their skills are better used elsewhere. So what we try to do is to combine these digital skills, especially in terms of selecting the relevant data, using a lot of programs that use this data, like Python, for instance. We have students from various engineering fields that come together to learn more about programming in what is called in artificial intelligence for all. It's not only for some to use it. And that is an opening because of this opportunity provided by the online option. And of course, it's consolidated during the face-to-face meeting, because the reality sometimes is doubled while being online and being face-to-face. So we started, apart from 1 semester, all the time we had the laboratory and application on site, and only the courses online because of the large number of students in one room. And it's not easy, it's difficult, but we are there and we do our best. Not only during the academic year, but also, let's say, during the holidays, because holidays, it's a relative concept nowadays. And in this term, we have also the support of the Student Entrepreneurship Society. I think all the universities in Romania have them now. And we have them in our university as well, where besides the events, it's a culture that starts to grow, and in connection with the digital skills, it's actually doing a difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alexandru, would you agree that that entrepreneurial mindset is essential to create that strong pipeline from education into industry? And again, returning to that idea of keeping students in Romania after they leave, after they, finish their studies?
I think that the answer here is more complex. And obviously, when I look at the personal perspective, I started my education during the communist time, when the government was pretty much securing a job for everyone. And the motivation in those times was personal. I would like to study a certain field because I just love that field, period. And there will be no major differences between people who studied different fields based on the salary. And there will usually this would not make necessarily a big difference. But of course, now we live in a different world, and the students we are teaching come with totally different mentalities. They are now looking at the fact, which is known to everyone, that pretty much everything passes through the stomach somehow. And obviously you might love a profession or another one, but if that profession is not enough for you to bring what is needed by you and your family, then you would probably move to a different opportunity. This comes true when you talk about liberal professions, and obviously architecture and urban planning are here among these liberal professions. And here we are dealing with a very interesting reality. I feel that our students are, first of all, having a material motivation when coming to our university. They come to these fields because they can make good money as professionals in these fields. So obviously you cannot somehow deal too much with that, because their profession and this primary motivation for a good salary comes somehow first into place. And if we look at what happens at our graduates, we can actually understand some of this phenomena, because some of the top ones go to international companies, usually abroad. And this happens sometimes even from the first year of study, where they start their internship and actually they are already planning for the future. They are choosing the company where they would like to work later on. Obviously, the next ones come into or go into the national companies, the top national companies, top in terms of the salary. And if we go downscale, we reach somehow for the last in terms of scores to remain in our universities or go to research, which are areas that were not so attractive. You see, before 1989, you had usually the top students going to teach in universities or do research. This was actually the most challenging and the most sought for area. So now there are some very many differences in terms of this. And for our particular field, you come up with something that you were talking earlier about data, something that data cannot show very well. And I'm talking since architecture and urban planning are liberal professions, some of our graduates are not necessarily exercising it through an already established company. They establish their own company called an individual architecture bureau or office, which actually is the own company of the former student, and maybe has 1 or 2 employees or something like this, but it is accounted for in the statistics as employment in the industry, which is not necessarily realistic, because this kind of office can actually survive a few years or even less, and then they will be looking for another profession. I think that we are looking at some sort of a crisis, and I say that because, you know, I had an opportunity to attend the presentations of our successful graduates. And when I looked at their example, it looks like some of them changed their field, and they were actually successful in a different field than the one in which they got their education. And if I take the examples and I look at their, let's say, evolution as a student, I also notice that these things change and are somehow irrelevant, because not always the ones that were remarkable as students are also outstanding when they are professionals. And obviously, this is getting us back to the idea we had before, that there are actually other skills than the professional training in their field needed for their success. So probably for them to stay in Romania, part can be seen in this changed economy, but there are also answers that have to be still sought for in our education system. And obviously, it is hard now to prepare students for tomorrow when you belong to the past. I feel it more and more somehow with respect to our students, because obviously they do not necessarily disclose as they used to disclose before their aspirations, their challenges, and so on. And since we moved to the online education, this happens even less frequent, because obviously, I take my personal example. In the past, I had office hours for my students. Now it's hard to have office hours. Obviously, I can do the same, stay online and see if anyone pops up, but this won't necessarily happen. I mean, it is hard now to get them involved during the courses. It is quite challenging. It is even harder to have a dialogue and see what is happening with that. So I think that actually the answers might be more complex than we believe at this moment. And also, I find hard to influence them. Some of them, as I said, already have their future set up in terms of how they see it, and it is very unlikely to be able to change that. Obviously, occasionally I am stopped in the street by some student who says, "Professor, you were right when you said 10 or 8 years ago something. Now we realize you are right." But yes, we are talking about different generations. We are talking about many changes in the education system. For instance, as I say, I teach doctoral students, and I feel that they are less prepared than before, because they are at a totally different age when they are not necessarily mature as people.
Thank you very much. Evgeny, I saw that you wanted to jump in there.
Yes, thank you. Let me actually lower my hand. Yeah, it just linked so much to what Alexandru was mentioning. I would like to argue the concept of having predefined future plans, and I would like to introduce some of positivity into the current situation, because some of the positive trends that we observed, that this kind of online digital learning gives students opportunities to try different skill sets before they actually decide where they go. So if before we had to study for 4 or 5 years and we were supposed to choose our specialization, say after graduating from year 2, right? Like, at least for my bachelor degree, it was like before year 2, you studied general studies like macroeconomics, microeconomics, and then you need to choose the direction. But even at that point of the time, you're not completely confident if this would fit you. What we're observing nowadays is that since companies such as Coursera are able to collect so much data and to create this skill sets, this allows learners to try different specializations. Because what's happening now and how the artificial intelligence mechanism is working, it's possible to actually input into search bar the work that you would like to try doing, and the mechanism would give you the skill set. Okay, you need to develop these skills, and these are recommended courses. You're taking particular testing to identify your level, at which level you're currently. So, and you're starting studying with many practical assignments, meaning that if you thought that you would like to try coding, you can do practical studying and see if it's something that resonates with you. And here's where I see difference and where I see something positive, that in this sense, current learners, and not only students, but people who are looking to actually reskill as well, they have so many opportunities to try doing things. And sorry for just jumping in, because I am always trying to see positives in different types of situations. Yeah. Romana.
Yes, no, it's great to have you jump in, and you mentioned upskilling, and this is something that I really want to spend some time on, and certainly to hear from Romana. We spoke about the fact that you're head of lifelong learning at your institution, and so I think you're perfectly placed to speak to us a little bit about the role of upskilling and reskilling and that lifelong engagement with alumni. So please do tell us everything you have about that.
So it's quite interesting that I totally share parts of the opinions presented by Alexandru related to different generations. So what dramatically we identify that the students are missing are any kind of vocational training, any kind of counseling, any kind of guidance related to their future careers. So in this respect, we launched so many programs for them in order to identify if they manage to select the best BA, the best MA, because they are sometimes they are struggling with their studies. So despite all the support they are receiving, they feel that somehow they are misfits within the university. So from my perspective, in Romania, we are facing a crisis in terms of selecting the best of the best from the high school. We are in a tough competition with international universities. Most of the highly skilled pupils are choosing UK or due to Brexit, not so much, but they are choosing other European countries in order to start their studies, higher education programs. And we try from this perspective to create highly attractive BA and MA programs. So we skilled our teachers, we upskilled their teaching skills. We introduce a lot of soft skills for them in order to be able to launch interesting programs for international students as well. We invested a lot of time and effort to develop Erasmus partnerships in order to bring international students, and we have so many international students, and the vibe is great. It used to be even better when we have face-to-face teaching and learning. I miss my international students. Now they are popping up from Germany, but they are online, and I do not feel the same. But in the same time, when we are referring to our students, we try to convince them that studying in Romania is not something that it's your last opportunity. So if you didn't manage to go to European University, you need to accept a Romanian program. We offer them opportunities to study abroad from one semester. We bring plenty of alumni in order to show them that you can build an international career as a graduate from Bucharest University. So these kind of examples, and they provide us with so much support with webinars, internships, all kinds of trainings that are job related, in order to convince students that after you graduate, you generally have the opportunity to build a career in Romania, not just abroad. We are facing the brain drain for so many years. But for my generation, for example, working abroad was something that was quite interesting. But for their generation, studying abroad and then staying abroad as and starting a career outside Romania is the most interesting perspective. So we are struggling to attract students in our programs. We try to create attractive programs for international students as well. And in the same time, we try to offer them that kind of job flavored programs in order to better equip them for highly demanding employers. They are constantly struggling with the task, with the time management, with everything that is asked for them from day one, pretty much. So that's why, for example, I remember 2 projects that we developed with the business environment, especially the IT sector. We transformed an MA program from informatics in partnership with 2 major players in IT sectors. And pretty much the program transformed dramatically. Everyone was so interested, both the trainers from trainers from the companies and teachers from the university, and the students were the direct beneficiaries of the program. And in the same time, I do remember that students are asking from plenty of skills that prepare them for the labor market. They are constantly asking. We want them to be. We want you to provide us this kind of how-to. As Evgenia mentioned, they want it quick. In 2 days, I want to know how to use this platform. I don't have time for 14 weeks program. This is taking and we try to convince them that being involved and being committed to your studies is important. And after you have plenty of time to struggle with your job-related issues, but enjoy your time as a student. But most of our Romanian students are having not just part-time, but full-time jobs, and this is something else. So we are struggling, and I think we prove to be successful. And I'm happy that we are still having talented students and very skilled students that are still choosing Romanian programs.
Thank you. We've got a few minutes left, but actually I'd also love to ask you, Romana, I suppose opportunities for professional development long after graduation are a really effective way of reducing talent drain. And so are you running a kind of alumni engagement program? Are you offering that sort of offering that professional development? And how is that working for you?
So they are so generous that's the first thing, that it was not difficult to attract them in such a program. Some of them were suggested or proposed by alumni themselves, and they are so convincing in the sense that you as a teacher or a trainer, both teacher and trainer, you cannot convince your students that there are other career paths than except for being a researcher, being a teacher within the university. So bringing alumni convinces the students that international careers can start from one specific department within the university. And what is so generous from the alumni, they are always bringing job offers. They are always bringing their, induction programs for the students. So I think that from our perspective, career management in partnership with alumni was the best way to convince our students that they are not alone. Even if they chose the wrong program or the wrong faculty, the wrong department, they still have enough time to figure out what kind of career they can develop. It was so fashionable for most of the Romanian students to become an entrepreneur, probably because we didn't have entrepreneurship developed in the previous years. But nowadays they are considering very challenging career and quite daring career paths. So that's why I am really hoping that we can preserve this kind of programs and develop even further.
That's really great to hear. Thank you. That actually also brings us to the end of our session today. So I'd just like to thank you all for joining us and sharing your insights. It was really interesting to hear from all of you. There'll be an on-demand video of today's session and also a summary article. So please do revisit that if you'd like to take another look at anything we've spoken about. And we certainly hope to speak with you again soon. But for now, I'll say again, thank you very much for giving us your time today, and goodbye.